That's it.
If there is a word which has become familiar to all of us, no matter your country, your age, your job, is Android. And this word is now embedded in our mind, while most people doesn't even understand what it means, more than that funny icon that you can find in your mobile when you are turning it on. And if this word comes together with the word Google, then the power of that brand is absolutely immense. It's a real dream for any marketeer. But Android is much more than that. Android represents, in our industry, a real opportunity. Is a fact. It's getting implemented in every single device that we are seeing around, and certainly we want to explore this impact together with Android itself. So we have today with us Mr. Antonio Alonso. You are the European Android Enterprise Development Manager.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks so much.
Welcome, Antonio. So I would like to start also by asking you about the history. I mean, Android seems for us that it has been there for always. But in fact, the company was founded in the early 2000s, and the first operating system was released in 2007.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely young, it's fantastic.
That's right. Thanks so much for having me here. Glad to be here. So yeah, Android has been here for 15, 16 years. It's amazing how much mobile has changed in all these years. As you say, many people are familiar with this green robot, but they don't know the history. Yeah. So we started back in Android in 2007 with the first Android device. Mm-hmm. And then with every year, we have launched new OS versions. At the beginning, it was like a dessert and alphabetical order.
That was so funny.
Yeah.
That was so funny. The Kit Kat, the marshmallow,
exactly,
the
Oreo.
But then you stop it. You know why?
Yeah.
It was probably confusing to the people.
So it was very challenging in the language because it was in English, and for some markets, it doesn't work the same way. Yeah. So with Android 10, we stopped the desserts and we start using the numbers, which is more, let's say, international.
I was always wondering, when you're implementing an Android, if you have Android 11, then it's newer than Android 10. If you got a marshmallow, you don't know if it's older than the Oreo on the cookie or whatever.
Exactly.
Right? So
we used to have also the numbers back in the days, but I think everyone was using the desserts instead. So yeah, I think mobility has changed a lot in the last 15 years. We've seen a big growth of Android in all these years. I think it's also not only the devices, but it's what you do with the devices. We've seen also an explosion of applications, both in consumer, but also in enterprise. And you see more and more like even companies doing different things, digitalizing and doing more things on their devices. So I think also we start to see a lot of innovation, different type of form factors. So Android has really grown a lot in these 15 years and is very mature today.
Absolutely. And one thing of what catch my attention is the fact that Google just stepped into Android. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Why that movement?
Yeah. So Google is a big company, as you know. Like we're also under the parent company of Alphabet, and we do many different things, many different business units. Obviously, our mission stays the same: to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible. I think in the early days, the way you were searching for information, the way you were using that information was mainly on the PC, on the laptop. Mm-hmm. That has evolved. In the last few years, mobile has grown a lot, has even overtaken the usage compared to PCs or laptops.
Correct.
And nowadays, when we search, when we look for directions in our maps, when we look for videos, we do it mostly on the devices. Yeah. So obviously, Android has been a key player in that sense to help many of our OEMs, many of the device manufacturers, to be able to play in that game and to have their devices built with the operating system.
Correct.
So that means that today users can do a lot of different things. I think digitalization in the consumer has become like a big trend over the last 10 years. Nowadays, you don't think about going to the bank. You don't think about going into looking for direction in a map or using a clock. You use everything on the device. Even this morning, I've just put solar panels. I'm surprised because you even check how much electricity you're getting and everything on the device.
Correct.
So everything is on the device today, and that's one of the one of the reasons also why Google has invested so much in Android, because at the end you're gonna search, you're gonna make a user of that information on the move at the moment that you need it.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, there are more and more applications which are really running over Android, and this is also one of the things, in our market, one of the big questions, is like big dangers, is like the consumerization, the danger of consumerization of the market. I'm sorry, the word is not properly explained, sorry for my Spanglish about that, but I think we all know what I mean. And when we see that Android has also moved into the professional side, to the enterprise side, that means there is a need, and this market is demanding things that probably were not answered by the consumer solutions. So maybe you can also explain us a little bit why Android has moved into this enterprise level.
Yeah, of course. So our team didn't exist if we look 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Android was purely focused on consumer, but we also realized that there was a need to improve the security capacities, the management capabilities within Android. So that's how our team was born back in 2012 to 2014.
Even young.
Very young.
Just
Exactly. So we started as a program that we called Android for Work, where we were trying to improve the features and APIs within the operating system. So it was easier to manage all these different devices through the different MDM and DMM platforms. So I think before that, it was a little bit complex because every OEM, every manufacturer needed to develop their own APIs, which mean that every EMM had to integrate those APIs. That made the ecosystem. So as Android, we're very open. We like to work with our ecosystem, with all the different players. But at the same time, it was challenging because for the customers, it was difficult to know which OEM to go for, which APIs to use, which features. So our team really developed a lot of features and APIs built for enterprise, but baked into the OS.
Correct.
So the idea was, you can still have like a differentiation, and OEMs have a differentiation and add additional layers, but at least that you have a common layer for Android in B2B, where everyone can manage in a consistent way, can deploy in a consistent way, that you have additional features, such as the work profiles, such as kiosks, such as managed play, that are now baked into the OS, which helps everyone step up the game. Because at the end, it's beneficial for customers, it's beneficial for partners, and partners can build on top of that. That is like the foundational layer for everyone.
Well, the solution might be the same, but the timings are totally different. I mean, when you are making let's say an investment in a warehouse, or you're making an investment in your mobility, in your transport company, then you expect also the return of investment and the lifespan of the products to be totally different on what you are experiencing as a customer. So that's absolutely a need, in the market. And of course, I'm very happy to see that Android took that step, because it also solves a lot of questions that are not or were not solved before in the market. And I think this is something that we need to address. I really would like to discuss or to hear from you, how Android is bringing their solutions into the enterprise world. Of course, Blue Star, we are a part of that environment. We are also being the ones which are trying to help our customers in the transition to Android, in the case that they have not do it, but we are also distributing and trying to implement some of the solutions that you have. The first one, probably the most obvious, is Zero Touch. So why don't we talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So Zero Touch is a solution that we launched 4 or 5 years ago. The idea is that you can deploy in mass hundreds, thousands of devices. So it is very beneficial, but we've even seen a very big spike with COVID, because obviously people didn't want to touch the devices.
I mean, that's the meaning of COVID, Zero Touch. Right?
Exactly.
Don't touch anyone. Don't touch anything.
Exactly. So the idea is that you can deploy as a partner for your customers, for your end customers, hundreds, thousands of devices. Those devices are hardware locked, which means that if the device is stolen, that if the device is lost, they wouldn't be able to access any information. Even if the factory reset the device, it will always come to this setup wizard. So as soon as the device is Zero Touch, and as soon as the device gets in the employee's hands, they will automatically start it, and will automatically go into a setup wizard to download and install the EMM and all the policies on the device.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Absolutely. You know that we are also using Zero Touch ourselves in our warehouse in Eindhoven, in our central warehouse. We have I think some dozens of units, and then of course they are controlled and then updated also remotely, from our IT department somewhere in Barcelona. So So it's really like it's a fantastic way. It's an easy for the worker. When they don't need to do anything. It's automatically, and someone is controlling just to make sure that the solution is correctly implemented.
Yeah.
But it's a great solution. And then we are also doing. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I know also you also offer this for your resellers, for your customers. So that's a big benefit because with so many resellers in the market, obviously we don't work with all the ecosystem, but you have a big network which can benefit from that, and they can go and implement or use Zero Touch for their customers directly through you.
Absolutely, and those are classical projects. I mean, I was just looking at the list of customers that they are implementing Zero Touch, through Blue Star, and then I mean, average is people, customers with 40, 50, 60 units spread, but we also have projects with companies which are being spreading like 5,000 units in different points in the world. I've seen also 2 or 3 projects like that, and that's a fantastic solution because we are taking away the headache of this reseller, we are taking away the headache of the end user, and then we are configuring in our value add service center in the Netherlands, we are configuring the unit before it's sent out. So this is a fantastic solution, to be honest.
Yeah, and we were mentioning before, like living in different cities, having people and employees spread across the globe. So this is very helpful because it doesn't need to go anymore through one single location where the IT is and manually configure every single device. You can directly ship it to anybody in the world, and automatically they will receive the device and they're ready to start using it, ready to start working. Yeah. So no more waiting, no more like shipping across all the different places, but everything is done over the air and everything is automatic right away.
Correct, exactly. Hey, you know what I like from this podcast? I think it's the first time I speak with someone who speaks faster than me. So I wonder if people is going to be understanding us with our accent. But one of the things that is also very important for the companies is like when you are implementing, either a professional consumer device, to your employees, most of them they could be using it for the, let's say, wrong use, right? Yeah. And I think this is also sometimes breaking, the implementation of these devices and those certain applications in the market. So let's talk about Play Store. I think that's really one of the areas that you have been more advanced, trying to protect, trying to make it safer, and also trying to ensure that it can be used in the right way by the companies. Correct?
Correct. That's correct. We do a lot of security controls in the Play Store, and what we have done in enterprise is to customize that Play Store for B2B. So we have created what we call a managed Play Store, which is really a Play Store customized for the companies, where they can decide which applications they want to show to their employees, which applications they want to push to the devices of the employees, and which applications they want to block from employees from installing. So let's think about like an application. I don't know. I know it has been banned in some EU regulation, in some governments, like TikTok, for example. Yeah. You could decide that in your enterprise device, in your Play Store, you wouldn't be able to see TikTok, or you wouldn't be able to install Netflix because you don't want the data to be used by a video application. So you can really decide how which applications are going to be on the device and which applications you want to push. And even we have started to give more and more control for private applications. So the IT can decide when to approve the permissions, when to install updates. So have a lot of more IT control on those applications which will be installed on the devices.
Absolutely, absolutely fantastic. And one of the things that I like also very much on your, let's say, recent steps is that you have also created your own certifications, right? You are certifying also those units, professional units, enterprise level units or devices, in order to help also the resellers. And so I would like also to know a little bit more about that. I mean, why or how that can become a kind of, I'm not going to say an opportunity, but a kind of security or a kind of warranty for the resellers when they are deciding what to offer to the end users.
That's correct. So on one side, we have GMS, Google Mobile Services, which is the certification we have for Android devices. But for B2B, we have gone one step farther, and we have created a certification called Android Enterprise Recommended, which is a certification for device manufacturers, which means that there is harder requirements in terms of software, in terms of hardware, in terms of security patches. And every manufacturer that wants to participate, they need to ship the device to us and that to our technical teams that will do some testing in order to validate against those requirements. So once they're approved, we give this AER badge, an enterprise recommended badge, to the device. So this is very useful because with I think there is like 500 OEMs for Android. There is more than 7,000 devices out there for Android. It's very hard to choose for a reseller, for a customer, which Android device to use in B2B. And this is a good way that you can use this certification in order to go after or select within those who have received this criteria.
And of course, you're working and you are certifying most of the brands that also Blue Star is working with. So we are, of course, starting with Zebra, Honeywell, Datalogic, but you're also expanding to other brands like Unitech, like Elo, also with different kinds of products.
That's correct. Right? So on one side, we started with this certification with what we call knowledge worker devices, but we have quickly expanded into the rugged space. And obviously, we work with Zebra, with Honeywell, with Datalogic, with all these OEM players, and they have tons of devices that they have certified in our program to show that on top of what they do on their side, that they also meet the requirements that Google is putting into this program.
Okay, hey, but Antonio, when we talk about professional services or enterprise level services, the lifespan, I don't know how to explain this correctly, but let's say the cycle, of the replacement of the unit, becomes a real trouble for the consumer. Sometimes when we are talking about our own personal phones, after 6 months, it's old. And of course, this is exactly what any company doesn't want to happen with the professional devices. We are, with the brands that you have mentioned, we are of course making sure that the return of investment is accurate, when they are making the investment. But from the operation system point of view, how are you solving that?
So we're doing several things. So when we talk about frontline workers, rugged devices, which obviously have a longer life cycle, what we see is that they need more frequent security patches. They need longer time periods to have those devices on security patches. And at the same time, you need also those devices to keep having some OS updates over time. So we have created different programs in order to solve that. We have the Project Treble, which is helping through the framework to be able to do OS updates in an easier way. And also we are allowing, or we are helping the OEMs to also push the security updates with more frequency. So whether it's with the program of Android Enterprise Recommended, where there are some requirements around security patches, but also on some changes we keep changing on the platform and the work we do with the chipset vendors to make sure that those devices keep adding the security updates that they need.
Okay, so no surprises. That's the message.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, no, but I think sometimes as a consumer you can get surprised, but this is exactly what you don't want to have when you are making an investment in your company.
Exactly.
All right. So if there is an area where we are also seeing a big expansion of the Android, that was not so much expected, to be honest, years ago, is on the payment side, especially in everything which is related to the POS. So in the payment, we are seeing that more and more developers are doing very nice applications to work on devices. And this is really becoming, to me, a great opportunity for more resellers. And I really would like to understand, why is that so convenient for retailers? What is your point of view on that?
Yeah, that's true. We see it both on consumer but also on enterprise. So in consumer, it's obvious, like if you think about what you carry today, you have your keys, you have your phone, and you always have your wallet. If you can remove one and you have your wallet in your phone, even better, less things to carry. So we see more and more tap to pay payments on mobile phones, but also on enterprise. What we've been doing and what we've been seeing is more kiosk point of sale, being able to use that for payments. So we've also developed features such as putting the device into a kiosk mode. We see more and more use cases around frontline workers, around POS, around kiosk, around restaurants that want to implement this type of payments. And it's an area that I think is still early stages on our side in Android Enterprise, but I think it's an area that will grow this year and where we see a huge potential.
Yeah, I think a lot of people still doesn't see that coming up, as strong as in other areas, of course, not even to speak on the consumer side, But there is also a new, let's say, side of this payment area, which is the soft POS, which is really stepping hard, that makes any Android device to become a payment. Even your phone can become a payment device. Some of our vendors, some of the brand that we are doing, like Zebra, Honeywell, etc.
Yep.
You know, they are also starting to step into that area, and then that means a complete new opportunity, but also a new challenge, right?
Yeah, I think those are very good examples. We work, as I said, like Android is very open. We work with all the ecosystem, and part of that ecosystem is also the ISVs. So we have also teams and APIs focus on those ISVs, so they can develop using our features and our APIs. And I think, there is a lot of them already getting into these payment applications. And what we're doing is also to make it easier to push those applications and to better manage those applications. So, for example, we have within applications what we call managed configurations, which allows to have more control remotely through the EMM of those applications. And payments is a very good example of that.
Correct. Well, I think the biggest trouble in payments is like most of the desktop systems are still working on Windows, and I think that's also let's say making that a lot of the developers are not seeing that opportunity as we see it. But if you look at, for example, of the ecosystem of our vendors, brands like NCR, they are still working on Windows. Brands like Elo, like Sunme, like Zebra, they are having also a mixed model, and they are stepping more. But in my imagination, I think in the imagination of most of the resellers that I eventually looking at this podcast, there are some stereotypes that I want to make sure that that maybe they are wrong or they are right. One of the things is, well, old developers are working or developing only in Windows. New developers, the fresh, young, cool people, is developing in Android. Big retailers, the dinosaurs, they are still working with Windows. And the small retailers, because probably it's more flexible, easier, they are working on Android. Is that true?
I think that's changing. I think that used to be the case. I think in the old days, we were very focused on smartphone and tablets. Then as we got into B2B, into enterprise, we started working much more on the rugged space. Yeah. And I think that's growing and expanding into other form factors. So today, when we think about Android, it's not only smartphone, tablet, rugged, it's a single-use device, it's a point of sale, it's a large digital display screen. So that enables also many new use cases. And I think for some OEMs, for some device manufacturers, they've been used to work with Windows CE, that some of them have not done the change yet. I think when we look at the big players such as Zebra, Honeywell, and so on, you can see that they have done a big investment in Android in the early days. And now that's paying off also because the life cycle of those devices are much longer. You already see that they've invested for quite some time, and now most of their portfolio is based on Android. Whereas you have other players who were used to build on Windows CE, for example, and although they see Android as the next step, as a way to implement it into the next devices, they take longer to make that change. So I think as the device manufacturers start to see also the opportunities that fall into Android and all these APIs and the different form factors, they will be able to invest more into building their devices into Android.
Okay, so it's exactly, and that's a reality. That's it's happening right now, and it's of course an opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about the future to come. I was the other day when we were talking about what is happening in the Android world. Then you said something that was really impressive to me. You were talking about augmented reality. And I really would like to understand. What is that going to mean in the developments of Android in the future?
Yeah, the future is exciting. A lot of new stuff coming up.
Because that's really future. That's not still there.
I think some of the augmented reality are already in place. So, for example, I've been in events with Zebra, and I've seen like the packaging dimensioning, and you take a quick snap, and automatically you get the full size of the box, or you get all the information. We also have implemented augmented reality in Google Maps as an example. So now you can navigate and you have everything popping up. Even I was at Mobile World Congress last week, and there were some good examples of taking some glasses and be able to see like 3 screens in the air. So it's really cool. That's something that also we're implementing in Android. There is AR Core, which is like the implementation of augmented reality into Android. And that's something that the OEMs, the device manufacturers, are also implementing into their devices. So that's going to allow, I think, to cool implementations, have very good use cases, where in the past you needed to do, for example, like checking all the boxes or all the how many boxes do I have in a warehouse. Now with this type of tools, you're going to be able to do it much quicker, and that's a big improvement and a big step in the productivity, for example, in the warehouse.
But also the future is bringing some things like you mentioned the hologram, 3D conference, that is also one of your projects. In fact, you already have a use case on that.
Yeah,
and that's I don't know if I feel safe on that, to be honest, but I think it's great to see that happening.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's the project Starline. I haven't seen it live yet, but basically it's using holograms in video conference. So imagine doing a Google Meet, and suddenly instead of seeing the person in your screen in 2D, you are able to see the person in 3D, kind of in a box. So basically you feel like you're in front of that person, even if it's not the case. So I think that's going to be saving a lot of travel. That's going to be able to connect better with that person. And that's something that we announced probably like 1 or 2 years ago. But I think end of last year, we already started to announce like testing with customers. So I think it's rapidly coming to real, and I would love to see that in real life.
Correct. And also the what we are seeing here and there, is also the let's say the chat bots, also the bots taking place, I mean, ourselves, we are also using now some artificial intelligence also to do our marketing. So I don't know, maybe in a few months, these podcasts are also done by a bot and not anymore by me.
I hope it's not the case.
Well, I also hope too. But okay, it can happen because, again, we are, and this is a reality, we are already doing part of our marketing with artificial intelligence. So it's happening right now. And you also mentioned things like chat, and how is that really, let's say, impacting your future business, Antonio?
Yeah, I think AI is becoming true. That's something that Google has invested over many years already. Yeah. Now I think it's getting very popular because of ChatGPT, which is in many conversations. Google has also released something called Bard, which is our own conversational AI.
Bard, can you spell it? It's
BARD.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's something that obviously we're implementing also all this AI into Android. So for example, a good example is battery saver. So a good way to improve the battery and the performance of the device. Yeah. Those are things that usually as a user you wouldn't be able to see. But what it's doing is extending the life of the battery.
If we are talking about the enterprise level,
you're right.
That is a critical thing.
Yeah, I mean, visually you won't be able maybe to see it in real life, but you're right. Like obviously in the day-to-day, you will feel that you will realize that the device is lasting longer, that you don't need to charge it so often, that obviously, and that's impacting the productivity of the company.
Okay, so there are real things, there are things for the future, so it's absolutely amazing. So it's going to be happy. I mean, it's going to be funny probably to repeat this podcast in a couple of years to see, hey, what we said then is now a reality.
Exactly.
But maybe it just can multiply by 10 times.
Exactly.
So let's finish this podcast, Antonio, by just pointing a few points. That okay, what are the takeaways that we need to tell to our resellers, which are hopefully seeing this podcast. And I will tell you the first one. I want also to stress that Blue Star can be the perfect, let's say, help, for any reseller to move into the Android. Not only to move into the Android, which probably most of the resellers have already done, but also to advise on these future things, also to advise in the implementation, and also to advise in how Android can be a market opportunity when you are trying to offer something new to your end users. But this will be my first takeaway.
Completely aligned on that one. I think we have a very strong partnership, Blue Star and Android. You have the capacities, you have the know-how, you have the implementation, such as Zero Touch, that you can offer to your customers. So for me, obviously, that's a big takeaway as well.
Okay.
Another one I would say probably is like how Android has moved from consumer into enterprise, into rugged, and into new use cases. Yeah. So I think that's going to keep expanding, and we're going to see more form factors with Android. So that's going to allow like new use cases. I think frontline, it's something that we believe very much, and we see a huge potential. Yeah. Because obviously when we talk about people with on the desk, I think there is a report which is like 80% of all the workforce is deskless, which means they don't have a desk. Yeah. And out of those, it's like 35% have the technology and the devices they need. Yeah. Which means that there is huge room to improve and to grow in that segment. And I think Android with Zero Touch, with Managed Play, with the APIs, have the technology and the capabilities to empower all these frontline worker use cases.
And I think this is also one of the messages. It's like this is an opportunity. When I said, and I have repeated this 10 times in the podcast, there is an opportunity here, is because a lot of our partners, they are not still stepping strongly into that future. And believe it or not, if you don't take it, the end users are going to be taking.
Yep.
And if you don't do it, someone else is going to be doing. And of course, there is an Android developer in every single corner, in every single country. So people is there able and willing to take the market.
Yeah, completely agree.
Okay. And the final thing I would say is like, I hope you agree, is it's a very generic message. It's like, this is an unstoppable path. This has been happening in the last 10 years. And the relevance of Android has been so huge, so much impacting every single side of the business, that this is going to be unstoppable. So you better join it or lose it, right?
Exactly. Completely agree with you.
Okay, so Antonio, it was a pleasure to have you here. I think it was very interesting. Thank you very much for giving us the Android, let's say, vision on the market and how our customers can benefit from that. So
it was a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
See you in a while to see if everything you have said becomes true. Thank you very much indeed, Antonio.
Thanks to you.